Atomm website, and I've got this linked in the description or in the pinned comment on this video. So once you get to the project on Atomm, just go over to the right hand side and click download all. This will download a zip file to your computer, and then just go navigate to your downloads folder. So we'll click on that, and we can see we got the file here. So just select it, and if you're in Windows, you need to extract all. Then we'll hit extract. So this just unzips that folder, so that way it's easier for your computer to work with. You can see here we've got the actual image or the SVGs, and then we have the project file. So you want to double click on the project file, and that will launch in xTool Studio. This project file is for the M1, and so I'm actually using the S1 today. So what I'm going to do is select my laser and we'll switch to it. And then xTool is just going to prompt and ask you, are you sure if you want to switch over to that other laser? And so I've done that successfully. And then also I can see now that I'm connected to my S1. So the next thing we need to do is reposition some of these parts of the design. So what I'm going to do is just grab it and move it down. Notice that I'm moving it inside this white area. That's the working area of your laser. And so whatever design you're working with has to be inside that area in order for it to process. Otherwise, you're going to get an error whenever you try to start the processing. The next thing we want to do is we want to load up the laser with our material. All right, so here with my laser, I've got the basswood plywood blank sheet, and this is a 12-inch by 12-inch sheet. So one of the things I always like to do is just kind of look at the material and see which side has the best appearance. So let's just open up the laser. And I'm going to place it so that it's vertical, the grain is vertical. And just lay it down in the laser bed on the honeycomb. And then let's just take and grab hold of the laser and slide it over into the work area. We need to use the probe here to measure the height of the material, what that distance is from the laser head, and that's going to set up the focal distance. So the next thing we need to do is use these crosshairs to position to a corner or some known part of the material. And so let's do that. We'll push it up into this corner, and I like to go in the top left corner like that. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to figure out on the workspace where's the material and how much space do we have to work with. So we'll use another handy tool in the software, and we will just simply mark the processing area and mark it as a rectangle. And now you can see we have the working area of the material that's on the bed. So at this point, it's very important that you don't move the material. And now we can select all of the elements of the material of the design here, and we'll slide that up. Slide that up as best you can in the top left corner, so that way you kind of save as much of the material and not waste any. But you want to make sure that you're not above that marked line that you done. So one last thing before we start cutting it out, I always like to go in and push the framing button, and what this will do is let the laser trace around the outside edge of all of the design that it's going to cut out. And that just helps me to confirm that none of the elements of the design are going to be outside of the material that I'm working with. And then now we're ready to start processing. So let's close the lid on the laser. And let's click that we're going to process. And from there, let's click Start. And because we're cutting through a material at a slow rate, it's going to give you a warning just to be sure that you're taking all the precautions and remind you not to leave your laser unattended. So now that that's ready, let's click the blue button on the front of the laser to start the job. All right, so the next part is we need to look at assembly. So let's get all of our pieces laid out, knock out any of the little pieces that are cut out. Be very careful about removing the parts for like the text. So I know these are actual cutouts, the rabbit and the base. And now getting out the Happy Easter part, which that came out really well. Lots of little intricate cuts, and it made that just flawlessly. All right, so we've got our parts as a kind of a simple design. These are the two pieces that make up the base, so those will need to be glued together like that, and that just gives it some thickness. And then this main part we will glue on the Happy Easter. I think it'll look better with some contrast, so what I'm going to do is stain this in the base, and I think I'm going to leave this a light natural wood color. All right, so in this base, we need to glue it together. So just take and spread that out back and forth. That works fairly well. Kind of go around the edge and make sure that it's flush all the way around. You don't want like a little ledge there or anything. So I kind of take and push together with my fingers, and everything looks good there. So keeping it lined up, you'll want to place it somewhere where you can put a heavy weight on top. So maybe if you've got clamps, you could put clamps to clamp it together, or maybe just a book on top of it, and that'll help set the glue and make it a good strong bond. So our next thing to glue up is to get the Happy Easter positioned on the front of this. Clearing off the surface and centering that up as best you can. All right, so now we've got the two pieces that we had glued up. They're dry, they're set. Our last little bit is to glue these together like this. So simplest thing is this is the contact area, so let's put some glue on those. Sufficient. Now we'll just slide those down into it. So you can see I got a little bit of glue to squeeze out there. I'm going to just take a rag and go down through there and wipe that off. So one thing that I've found helps to get a good 90-degree angle on stands like this is I will take and place it on the edge, over the edge of my workbench, and that ensures that this is, because I know this is a pretty close to a 90-degree edge. So this corner right here helps make sure that this is a 90-degree edge. And I'll know that once this dries, it'll be standing upright and be not just leaning forward or back. So we'll let this set and dry, and then we'll come back later and everything will be ready to put a final coat of like a clear coat or some sort of finish, and we'll be done with the project.